is Mary McGillicuddy. I am a career advisor and instructor for Arizona State University's School of Sustainability. The school is housed under the bigger College of Global Futures, which has more degrees. Just for disclaimer, I am here just representing myself, my personal experience, and I'm not a representative of the university today. What I really wanted to talk about are once young people figure out like what they're passionate about, then what jobs are out there for them, as well as some of the challenges I'd say that higher education is kind of facing in the new skills-based economy and hiring. This is a great place to kind of hear your insights and perspectives on how everybody can work together to make these green jobs happen so our planet can be healthier and more vibrant. So in my world, I see news articles like this all the time. Maybe you've seen them too, but Inflation Reduction Act, huge source of funding for climate action, which also leads to climate jobs. Everybody's like, green jobs are everywhere, so sustainability booming. Then you get some sensational things. We don't have enough people to fill these jobs. We're scared that we're not going to be able to make the transition. And then also some ideas for ways to address those gaps. As a career advisor, and I'm sure for my students, some of these sensationalized headlines can be really frustrating, considering like, I have a sustainability degree. I have applied for 100 jobs in the past 3 months. What do you mean there are too few employees or too few people out there? But for some definitions first, green jobs is kind of like a murky catch-all term, and there is no one agreed upon definition. The simplest definition is from LinkedIn. They're just saying it's a job that you need green skills for. And then what are green skills? Something that allows sustainability to persist along with economic activities, meaning businesses, operations, services. If you want to get a little more technical, the United Nations has a nice, really clunky definition here, but preserving, restoring, protecting the environment is kind of the theme. And you can do that in so many different ways. We'll go one more. US Bureau of Labor Statistics has a more narrow focus, but again, helping the environment, conserving natural resources, and things like that. For me personally, and from what I've learned, it helps to kind of break green jobs down into very, very broad categories. For me, environmental stewardship or environmental protection is category one, kind of like our most traditional or first kind of environmental jobs. So thinking back to ecologists, biologists, wildlife conservation, jobs with the Environmental Protection Agency, really thinking about protecting the environment from human impact or just making sure that it thrives. Another category is climate action and resilience. So really focused on reducing emissions to prevent climate change. And also we know that's not 100% possible. So also mitigation or adaptation and resilience. So how do we lessen the impacts of climate change and those emissions? How do we bounce back when disasters occur? So again, there is interconnection. I'd say a little bit separate just because climate action is so focused on CO2 and greenhouse gas emission reduction. So for example, like water quality on the environmental stewardship side, not necessarily going to help you bring down your emissions and prevent climate change. And then kind of in the middle, I think is where sustainability lies, because you're trying to protect resources. We're trying to make sure we have a livable planet for future generations. It also includes the human dimension when it comes to equity, human rights, and then human health as well, like environmental public health, which is what I studied. And since I'm with sustainability students, some of the industries that are somewhat agreed upon are listed here. So corporate sustainability was kind of the original thing, whether you're working for a company, for example, McDonald's, you're the chief sustainability officer, you're looking at all the processes at McDonald's, seeing how can we reduce our environmental footprint and also like human rights, and measuring, your emissions, also strategies to reduce those emissions or your impact. Energy, renewable energy, energy transmission, electrification is a big one. Food systems, transportation, of course. Climate tech is a newer fun term. We're looking at both software and hardware solutions to address, prevent, or minimize climate change. So a lot of software that's coming out now is really more on like reporting your emissions. So a company getting all of their data, like their utility data, their water use, and being able to talk to other databases like their HR1 to come up with these reports that are voluntary at this point across the US, but are becoming mandatory in Europe. Hardware, for example, is like at ASU, we have mechanical trees that we're testing out where it's direct air carbon capture. They're sucking carbon dioxide out of the environment, ideally storing it underground somewhere else. And then policy, is kind of the through line through all of this, as well as justice, where policy also comes in there, recognizing that usually the people who have contributed the least to climate change or environmental impacts are impacted the most. And how do we make sure that their voices are considered in policymaking, or, when we are trying to right the wrongs, that they are considered first. So then LinkedIn comes up with an annual green skills report, and this is from 2022, but I thought it was pretty useful. A lot of my students and their parents are always like, what job titles are available to me? What kind of job titles should I be looking for? So we have both on the x-axis, this is from 2020 to 2021. These are the job titles that grew on LinkedIn, just their platform. So not all jobs, just the ones posted on LinkedIn. And then on Y is longer term, over 5 years, what's growing the most. And sustainability manager is a big one. That's great. Environmental health and safety specialist, wind turbine technician, solar consultant. Not all of these need bachelor degrees or master's degrees, but some do. And then same 2022 report, these were skills that were listed in job postings on LinkedIn. So we have specific skill name and then the category. So sustainability is listed, which is great for my students. Remediation, policy, climate, renewable energy. And I think this environmental awareness one is interesting. I think that comes down to environmental education a lot. And then finally, the most recent report looked at what skills are LinkedIn users adding to their profiles. So not necessarily what employers are looking for, but what people believe are valuable to advertise about themselves. So carbon accounting by far has had the biggest jump. That goes back to calculating emissions of a company, a city, a government, anything like that, and going back to that software to try to track all of that. Drinking water quality, carbon credits, carbon emissions, all on that climate action side, which is exciting as well. So at my school, we are the first in the nation. They started the school in 2006, and I still remember being in high school and everybody's like, what are they doing? ASU, we don't know about them. But look at us now. People know us. We have a good representation of students. Both in-person and online programs are offered at all levels, bachelor, master's, and doctoral. So I just want to focus on our bachelor's degrees for today. Core competencies, or what you'll learn in your degree, these are the phrases they use to list them. So systems thinking, which Nayeli mentioned, future thinking, values thinking, strategic thinking. This is great, but I think if you took a look at the skills that employers listed in their job descriptions, none of those were listed. And here are some of our core classes that everybody has to take: calculus, probability, systems thinking, future thinking. And then as a student, you pick a concentration or a track area. Really, all this means is you have to take 3 courses related to one of these concentrations. So they're your electives. And I wouldn't say it makes you an expert, but it gives you an extra focus. So just a couple examples of some of the job titles that our alumni have. Granted, this is anybody and anyone from 2006. So being a corporate affairs manager with right out of your undergrad, I don't think that's realistic, but it is something that is part of a path that you can have. And so as an advisor working with students, I think my perception is skewed because I'm meeting with students who are applying for jobs first time ever, or I'm meeting with alumni who, again, have been applying for jobs and things aren't working out. So I see a lot of the disconnect or the mismatch between what our degrees offer, what employers are looking for, and the disconnect there. So just to give you an example, back to those green skills that LinkedIn published, really the only classes that address those head on or skills that they'll get are in sustainable development and policy. A lot of these others are really more geared towards your traditional environmental science or public health, or really carbon accounting and ESG reporting is more in our business school. As far as I'm concerned, we don't have any classes offered right now related to reporting or accounting or greenhouse gas emissions. It's like talked about, but it's not like we're going to teach you how to do this. Some other challenges that our students are facing. I have an asterisk here on skills-based hiring because I strongly support skills-based hiring, meaning employers are looking at your skills, what you can do, and not so much your credential, which used to be a bachelor's degree or a certification. I think that levels the playing field a lot. At the same time, for our students or for our university, I think higher ed has kind of been coasting with credential-based hiring, where it's like, you just need any bachelor's degree and you're going to get a job, so don't worry about it. And as you saw from our core competencies, they're very abstract. Futures thinking, systems thinking, values thinking, that's great, but that's not the language employers know. We talked to an employer at a federal agency, and she said, I hear a bachelor's degree in sustainability. I don't know what that means. And like people laugh. She's like, no, really, I don't know what that means. So it's a term everybody uses, but what a degree in sustainability actually means, what skills are there, that's still very unclear on the employer end. And I would say sometimes on our students' end as well, they're really not sure. They know how to think, which is great, but like, what can they do? Of course, internships are a great way to enhance your resume and what you've learned. Unpaid internships are becoming more and more uncommon, but they still exist. And I think that also is a challenge for our students, especially our first generation students, getting on a career path that they want. I mean, nobody should be unpaid, but especially if you're already working a job, to take on something else as a return on investment, being an unpaid internship, that's not equitable at all. I will also say the sustainability field or industry moves fast. We have different reporting frameworks that come out all the time. It's trendy. For example, there's like GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative. Everybody wants to use that reporting framework. Then a new one comes out, and then they're like, we're going to use this one. Policies affect what companies do. Policies are great for like we said, the Inflation Reduction Act or the Securities and Exchange Commission is thinking of requiring all publicly traded companies to disclose emissions. So that spurs jobs, but it moves really fast. Higher education moves very slow. It has taken over a year for our graduate committee to update the curriculum. They're not even done. So by the time we update our curriculum, it's too late. We're going to have to start over again. And I think across the board, diversity in higher education is still an issue. It's getting better in our school. White female students are the majority or make up the majority of our students, which is great, but there's a lot more that needs to be done to make sure everybody who wants to make an impact in sustainability sees themselves represented. So on the solution side, on a case-by-case basis, I meet with students one-on-one, meet with employers so they know like what our students are learning. We have really cool opportunities to do capstone projects where an employer or an organization gives our students a project to work on over the semester. So they're almost like a consultant. So everybody's learning what they bring to the table. Curriculum updates must happen faster. For more of those systems level solutions, academia and industries and employers need to come together and talk to each other when we're creating degrees to make sure that they're valuable. It would be great too if there was some type of standardization or accreditation like there is, I think, in engineering or pre-med, where we all kind of agree, here's what we need a degree in X to include. And then apprenticeship programs, or vocational training, those exist where you start as like an apprentice one, you move your way up. That would be great for college students as well. So I'll just briefly show an example of helping our students with career exploration. So like Nayeli was saying, it's like, we want you to figure out who you are and what you're interested in. I think a lot of parents are just like, what can my student do? And they want ideas. I like to take the reverse choice of like, tell me like what excites you, and then let's work our way down. So this exploration onion is really helpful, where you think big picture, like what's a sustainable development goal you care about? Cool, let's start there. Do you want to work internationally, globally, or locally? Cool. What kind of organization would you want to work for? A company, a government, a nonprofit? And you work your way down to get really clear on like an actual job you want to apply for. So I will stop there, and I can put some links in the chat to these. I think they're really helpful, especially Diversity and Sustainability has done a lot of research on how to increase diversity in the sustainability field.